clear of reporting.
Hello comrades. So, the new PoE2 League is coming up, and it's huge. Much bigger than probably anyone expected. First original content in PoE2, that looks like Affliction. But works like Abyss. So yeah, we just follow some kinda wisp, and kill monsters that spawns on top of us. Looks kinda boring, to be fair. New Rogue Exile system, now they actually use items, and it affects them, and after they die in PvP, they drop the item, like a real ethical gamer. Sounds awesome on a paper. Hopefully they're not super overtuned, especially after the patch notes nerfs, which we'll talk about later. More cool stuff on a world map, with 7 new endgame unique maps. And even Calandra map. Fewer towers, with more slots for precursors. So towers are less annoying now. And of course more crafting options, fracturing orbs. More essences on a maps. And, Recombinator, huge, but how will it work without alts, and scouring orbs, that's the question. The game still has some problems, but GGG is heading in the right direction, that's for sure. At least the new content looks cool. At this pace, a few more years, and PoE2 will be perfect. And there is more, mounts, tons of new uniques, unlimited portals for trading, more unique strongboxes, new runes, and so on. But still no druid, even though we saw druid gameplay like 4 years ago. And of course, let's talk about the patch notes. Well, GGG has done it again. This is even bigger than the massive nerf in 3.15. Just about every popular archetype has been nerfed. Attribute stacking, nerfed like 10 times in a row. But maybe it's actually still alive, unironically. Archmage, gone. Energy shield, they literally removed Grim Feast. Even Concoction's skills are pretty much dead now. GGG especially hates single target skills, like Barrage, Hammer, and Tempest Bell, they all got huge nerfs. And that was not even the worst part of these patch notes. Heavy stun against us has 3-second duration. And also stuns now disable all evasion, sounds pretty rough. Also, players now have less ailment threshold, which means we get shocked, ignited, and frozen a lot more often. So yeah, that was kind of predictable. The speed in PoE2 was too much for a beta, they definitely didn't expect that. That's why, most of the nerfs is definitely deserved. But what about the buffs? Maces and warriors should feels better now. Crossbow bases got a huge buff. And some other small buffs that are not really important. But even with all these nerfs, don't forget that we don't know anything about most of the uniques, and in 0.1, some of the uniques were pretty big. For example, we already know about Mjolnir, which looks awesome. We will definitely try that unique. The problem is that they remember to nerf the overpowered skills, but forget about the weak gems. But, that's GGG, they always do the same thing. And let's not forget the 100 support gems, which will probably increase our power creep as well. So, what about the League starter build? Crossbows are going to get huge buffs, that's for sure. Things like Explosive Shot, Galvanic Shards, and Shock Burst will be 100% good. Yes, they nerfed all those skills a bit, but we get our compensation with new bases. Grenades on the other hand are going to be super clunky, because they've increased the cooldown on most grenades, so even with all those damage buffs, it's not going to change anything. What about Flicker Strike? Monk should be a 100% solid choice. Profane Ritual with Reaper's Invocation still works fine. They even buffed it. But, there is a problem, they nerfed Herald of Thunder, and since Flicker Strike itself has no AoE, this is a big deal. So, definitely not. Deadeye also got nerfed. Combat Frenzy now has a higher cooldown, 4 seconds is still fine, but Flicker seems kinda bad, after attribute stacking nerf. We might play it again later, but not as a League starter. PoE2 Flicker is way too clunky. So, our starter build will be Spiral Volley. This has to be a good choice. This skill got 10% more damage per frenzy charge, plus, Deadeye Ascendancy was buffed. Now Deadeye has a 100% chance of getting double the benefits from the frenzy charges. And yes, they nerfed Barrage by about 400%, which is supposed to be our main single target damage skill in this build. But literally every single target damage skill got nerfed, and Snipe is still the same, so we're pretty confident that single target damage will be fine. With enough gear, of course. What about the build? Since they also buffed physical damage, by reducing monster armor, we will scale physical damage. How to sustain frenzy charges. Combat frenzy plus bushwhack boots with avidity ascendancy should be enough to sustain tons of frenzy charges constantly. We can also use sniper marks on top of that. But yeah, we might change our plan at the last moment, like in a previous league, because this game changes drastically. Maybe Ralakesh's boots will be Giga overpowered for Flicker Strike, then we just have to start with proper Flicker. What about leveling? Lightning Rod with Orb of Storm probably still good enough, even after the nerfs. At least for leveling, so we will start with that. Well, that's it, thanks for watching. And if you like this video, leave a like, or comment, or both. See ya in the 0.2, comrades.
Ready, comrade.